Well, we made it through the first 3 chapters. It took us 2.5 days to get there, but the rest is really smooth. For those who attended the very first class, I spent some time discussing the meaning of the title, Madhurya Kadambini. I'm sure you remember the Kadambini part. That's the monsoon cloud, or the cloud bank, like in the rainy season. Only instead of pouring down rain, Madhurya Kadambini pours down madhu. That's too much. No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. Too much. Remember? Mellifluousness. This nice devotee gave this explanation. The root, mel, in Latin means honey. And honey is too much anyways, has an intoxicating effect. Bees like honey, they become intoxicated. And this second part has to do with pouring like honey. So that's the graphic that's on the left there. It's the honey, the madhu, that's pouring down. And at a certain stage, it becomes steadfast. Nishtha. Big stretch in between unsteady and steady. And that big stretch, we spent some time, 3 classes yesterday discussing anartha nivritti to get to nishtha. So take a deep breath. We're at nishtha, at least in terms of our study. And the nectar begins to flow. So from this point on, each of the next 5 classes is 1 chapter per class. And we'll start to get into, our acharyas will begin using metaphor and simile. It's, poetic ornaments, alankara, ornaments of poetry, because we're being encouraged to understand something that's beyond us. So to understand something beyond you, you use something that's within your experience and say it's like that. Metaphor, the rule is as many similar points as the metaphor, then it's a good metaphor. Because it's not a one-to-one match. I don't know too much about medallions, but I know a little bit. So there's a gold medallion. At the stage of nishtha, the devotee who carries in his heart the golden medallion of bhakti, shining radiantly by the fire of steady practice. So gold in fire becomes radiant. Gold is gold, and gold in fire it glows. So this golden medallion that's in the heart of the devotee, from the fire of steady practice, that's us, steady practice, right? Practice and practice, abhyasa. We hear different definitions several times of what practice and steady practice is. And practice. One may, when that golden medallion becomes a glow from steady practice, it becomes effulgent, and likewise in the heart of the devotee becomes effulgent. And that's not a metaphor. We've seen devotees that are, I'll mention one name, Badahari. Many of you know Badahari. Badahari is a name of Haridas Thakur. There's Chota Haridas and there's Bada Haridas. Chota is the younger, Bada is the elder. So Badahari, Prabhu, when he sits down at harmonium, next time you're with Badahari and he starts to chant, check it out. He starts to glow. Check it. He becomes radiant. He loves the holy name and loves the chanting of the holy name and the congregational chanting of the holy name, and he radiates. So similarly, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing the stage of Nishtha is such that the physical, the outside of the body is glowing, of the person is glowing, because inside it's the gold medallion of bhakti shining radiantly by the fire of steady practice makes their whole being glow, effulgent. The devotee is soon to experience the pure spiritual taste, ruchi, of life immersed in bhakti. Prabhupada would comment like this. It's true. What persons would ask, sometimes priests, he would refer to priests that said, your students are so effulgent. Before they were, not so effulgent, ashen-faced, he used the phrase, due to, absorption in tamagun and rajagun. You're not effulgent from either of those gunas. But bhakti does something from the inside and it shows on the outside. Here's a very nice, in just searching, medallion in the internet, I found this one. I asked Kaladri, is it true? And he added something. This is from Lilamrita. At Srila Prabhupada's departure, Kaladri came into the room with gifts for Srila Prabhupada, an $8,000 check, a sapphire ring, and a gold medallion studded with sapphires and rubies. Now, Prabhupada's on his last days in Vrindavan, and Kaladri was sent by, he explained, he was sent by Kirtananda with these three things plus one other thing. You know what the other fourth thing was? Ice cream. New Vrindavan ice cream from the protected cows, ahimsa milk, made into ice cream and carried in an airplane in, what do you call that, something ice? What's it called? Dry ice, thank you. In a little container packed with dry ice and mango ice cream. And Prabhupada wasn't eating. He took some mango ice cream from New Vrindavan. Kaladri used a spoon to give Prabhupada the ice cream. I'm sure that image is in his mind forever, beyond this body even. But so, a gold medallion studded with sapphires and rubies. What's he going to do with a gold? It's a decoration for one who deserves decorations. So this, back to the medallion, there's a decoration. It's the heart of the devotee that's attained the stage of nishtha from the fire of steady practice. So here's some simple definitions. Nishtha, one simple definition, unshakable resolve. Nishtha, unshakable resolve. Nishtha requires good luck. Nishtha requires using superior intelligence. This is a key factor that, in compare and contrast, nishtha requires and engages buddhi, spiritual intelligence, to guide the mind towards the higher stage, the taste. And the taste is spontaneous. It doesn't require the intelligence guiding it. It's spontaneous. Nishtha literally means to be fixed or steady. Nishtha. Ta and nishtha. Fixed, steady. And similarly, same Sanskrit root, naishchalyam. This word is found in the scriptures sometimes. Non-movement. The heart, the mind, consciousness becomes steady, or there's no movement. However, as long as anarthas are still present, one cannot always be steady. And therefore more practice, more practice, more practice, more practice. And sometimes the appearance of unsteadiness or the appearance of something other than nishtha, even in the stage of nishtha. So this is an essential part. There's more lists of things. If you weren't bothered by how many obstacles there are, here's 5 more. Just in case you weren't bothered by it. Now you can be bothered. The statement is, as long as anarthas are still present in the heart, the devotee may try as hard as possible to counteract them by devotional service, yet the 5, they're intimidating. 5 internal obstacles undermine his attempts to reach steadiness in devotion. Sometimes devotees ask the question, more than sometimes, I get distracted. What do I do? You know that one, that question. Well, you read Madhurya Kadambini and keep practicing, Prabhu, because practice and practice and practice, and even in the nishtha stage, before you get to the ruchi stage, you have to more scrubbing. It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Gundicha Marjana. They cleansed, and they went through and cleansed again. If you want Krishna to sit in your heart and you can experience the presence of Krishna in your heart or see him, etc., keep cleaning. So here's a nice chart. And on the left side, it shows what we did in chapter 2. Now these were new terms, and now you're so familiar with these terms that you probably can recite them in your sleep. Right at the top, it's in reverse order. At the top is the last one, but anyway, let's go at the bottom. Utsahamai, Ganatarala, Vyuta Vikalpa, Visaya Sagara. Then so Niyama Akshama Tarangarangani. And we're going to hear Tarangarangani again because it gets in the way again. In other words, it's not completely gone. These are just symptoms of unsteady. And to get to the stage of steady, there's still residual tendencies. Clear? Good. Now the list on the right, this is our new 5 list. Oh boy. Here they are. Starts at the bottom. Sleep. Distraction. Indifference. Apratipatti. Indifference. Tendency toward bad habits. Some habits you can take care of. Some habits, they kind of linger. You can do without them, but then they're habits because they're habits. And sometimes bad habits, they come out. Whatever that might be. Anger or something. That remember those nice lists of things that are products of affinity for the temporary. And a continuing taste for sense pleasure. So we're going to hear more about these. Here we go. Though a person strives for steadiness in bhajan every day, striving for nishtha, I'm still in the anishtata, striving for nishtha. While anarthas are still present, he will not attain it. This is due to these 5 persistent obstacles. When these obstacles are almost completely destroyed means they're still lingering. One achieves steadiness, nishtha. Thus, the symptom of nishtha is the absence of these 5 obstacles. Meaning, when bhakti becomes practice of bhakti, sadhana bhakti becomes so strong, even there's tendencies, they can't manifest because bhakti is so strong. Rarely it may, but generally speaking, that's the sign that nishtha has been achieved. We'll hear it towards the end of this morning's class more. So back to this mantra, still chanting, still reading, not much progress. I think in the past 2 weeks, I've heard this 10 times. Different ways of saying the same thing. It's common. So misery loves company, right? What to do? One of the answers is continue with your sadhana, anyways. Or in terms of lila, it's not just you do and then the bad things go away, but you demonstrate to Krishna that you're real sincere. Here's Prabhupada. I've narrated this story many times, but it's one of those fixed in my mind. This is Henry Street, Brooklyn Temple. Prabhupada, it's during the summer, really hot. In New York, it gets hot in the summer. So the windows were open, and Prabhupada's up in this very elevated seat. And he's explaining, sometimes Krishna will test his devotee. You say you want me. Are you sure you want me? How about a little sense gratification? His eyes got big. And then he went like this, no. I only want you. And then Prabhupada said, and then so Krishna may say, maybe the devotee really wants me. What about a little Krishna's testing. And the devotee says, I don't mind the suffering, I only want you. Please give me access to serve you directly. Oh. This is Prabhupada, all that little voice inflection. Maybe he does want me. All right, I'll give myself to him or her. So this is the Damodar Leela. We honored this pastime because when she tried to bind Krishna with rope, she couldn't bind Krishna with rope. And why she couldn't? Because Krishna didn't want to be bound by rope. Remember from our earlier discussion, Icha. He didn't have to do anything. He just had an Icha. And when Krishna has a desire, he has so many potencies. According to, this is Jiva Goswami's analysis, his Sankalpa Shakti, Satya Sankalpa Shakti. Yes, sir, you have a desire? Then Leela Shakti, subordinate Leela Shakti to Satya Sankalpa Shakti, resting upon Krishna's, and he didn't have to do anything, just desire, I don't want to be bound. No. So she couldn't do it. And she couldn't do it, and she couldn't do it, and she couldn't do it, and she couldn't do it. However, eventually she could do it. And what made the difference? The difference was she was persistent. Out of love, not mechanical. You know, I want to torture this little boy because he's naughty. But, you know, out of love, out of a mother, genuine, the real thing, motherly love for the personality of Godhead. So he saw that. He saw the perspiration. He saw the flowers falling from her hair. He saw the facial expression. The Sanskrit word that's used by Jiva Goswami is parishrama. And he saw the parishrama, the intense, sustained effort that she was making. And so he withdrew his Icha and Satya Sankalpa Shakti and Leela Shakti and exhibited another Shakti by his Icha. And that was his Kripa Shakti. Back to the previous slide. When you get to the point where it's like, what to do? Remember this Leela. The appearance of Krishna's mercy made his Satya Sankalpa and Vibhuti Shakti immediately disappear. The distance of 2 fingers was filled by the devotee's effort, parishrama, and hard work, right in the verse, and the Lord's causeless mercy, kripa. So keep trying. Even when you're not there yet, keep trying. And expect Krishna's mercy. I mean, you can appeal to Krishna for his mercy, but you know, don't demand it. You can't hurry Krishna. You have to be patient. And in due course of time, like the tree that produces fruit in proper time. And once that stage of nishtha is reached, then residual traces of anarthas don't act. There's still residual traces, but they don't act because you're immunized. You know, just like medicine. You take a immunization injection or whatever it is, depending upon what's going on. And you can be exposed to something, but you're protected from that something. And here's an explanation of that from Lord Shiva. As you see, there he is floating in the sky with different devas surrounding him, and the prajetas are engaged in their austerities, etc. And he's very pleased by their austerities, and statement is made, The devotee whose heart has been completely cleansed by the process of devotional service and who is favored by Bhakti Devi does not become bewildered by the external energy, which is just like a dark well. Being completely cleansed of all material contamination in this way, a devotee is able to understand very happily your name, fame, form, activities, etc. Now, statement, I'm just saying it again and saying it again. Statements made by Rupa Goswami are statements given to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and both they're rooted in scripture. So here's Vishwanath making a declaration about Nishtha, and here's a scriptural reference that supports the statement. That's just the standard. Statements need scriptural support. And of course you can get scriptural support with the wrong understanding. So alignment with the predecessor acharyas. Anyway, moving along. Before, we spoke a little bit about moving from Nishtha to Ruchi. Now it's before you attain Nishtha. Here's these 5 little obstacles. And indolence or sleep. Here's a short explanation. Laya is the weakness of being more drowsy during hearing about the Lord than while chanting, more drowsy while remembering than while hearing. So the modes of nature are still acting. Indolence. Mental activity or sleep during kirtan, shravana, and japa. Mental inactivity or sleep during kirtan, shravana, and japa. Now, when you engage in japa or any devotional activity, take sufficient rest. Not too much, not too little. And too little, and then it's easy to get drowsy. So, what's enough? And the answer is so that you can remain attentive. That's how much. And not too much. Enough. Next. Distraction. No, Bhaktivinoda Thakur spends substantial time on this one. Here's just a little statement from Vishwanath. Vikshepa is talking or thinking about mundane nonsense during devotional activities, such as hearing and chanting. So he, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, writes profusely about this one. Distraction. Guess what it's the images. For men it's money and women, and for women it's money and men. From distraction, all types of inattention are born. This fault resides in attraction for women, or men in the case of women, and wealth. Attraction for material success, or victory, desire for position, and the cheating propensity. Remember those terms? Kutinati and so forth. Distraction. This, that, and the other thing. So this is one of the 5 residual. You can't get to Nishtha stage as long as these are there. This is from Harinam Chintamani, chapter 10. It's one of the offenses, but in case you didn't recognize it. Distraction, the inattentiveness while chanting. Number 10, chapter 10 of Harinam Chintamani. We saw this yesterday. Apratipati, not being resolute. Although both Laya and Vikshepa are diminished or even absent, one still feels incapable of dedicating oneself to or disinterested in hearing and chanting due to lack of firm motivation. Indifference, disinterest. In other words, the commentators say, my mind is such when I hear some profane, mundane gossip, my ears perk up. And when I hear Krishna Katha, not the same. It's nice, but it's not the same. But so going beyond that stage of hearing whatever, I mean, I know a devotee, probably nobody in the room here, but a devotee has kind of an addiction to checking the news. And once he gets into checking the news, he spends too much time checking the news. And he feels regretful. And then he does it again, and he does it again, and does it again. It's a time waster. You may need to know ABC, but do you need to be addicted to the news? And what's the latest with this and that and the other? We can all point fingers at ourselves and say, to some degree, I think I spend too much time in keeping myself abreast of what's going on in the world. Because who knows when the bomb is going to come or when something. I should be prepared. But it can become, going further in that direction, irresolute towards hearing and chanting, and thus a greater affinity for the mundane topics. Kasaya literally means impurity, and so below the surface there's emotions or tendencies, and they sometimes appear. Kasaya is defined as the tendency to display bad habits or old faults, such as anger, greed, etc., even during devotional activities, or in spite of engage in devotional activities, those things come out. And here's number 5. The taste for material enjoyment. It's kind of all-pervasive. This one doesn't go away so quickly. Rasavada is due to residual taste for material enjoyment, distracting the mind from absorption in the holy name. The mind, notice its emphasis, when we say the name, remember our upalakshana, it implies the other 8. Because it's the head, it's an important one. It doesn't negate the other 9, or the other 8, but it implies it without stating it. The mind remains attached to sense pleasure, often meditating on it, such that he is unable to hear and chant with concentration. That means Rajaguna is taking over. We'll see some nice examples of that. You'll see in a moment. So transitioning from anishtita. Hear these 2 verses. We've heard it several times. We're going to hear it a couple more times. Let's recite the verse together. Shrinvata Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Ridyantakstoya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Saritsatam. So there's Bhadra and there's Abhadra. And it's the same as anarthas, unwanted things or inauspicious things, abhadras. Vidhunoti, Suhrit, Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So standing alone, the topics of Krishna Katha is virtuous. And when there's on our part, an eagerness to hear that which is virtuous, it has an effect. The sound vibration cleanses the heart of material affinity. And that's the beginning stage, and then comes the next stage. That's anishtata, now nishtha. Together? Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistake. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee. So that's the Bhagavata Sevaya. But the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata. Bhagavata means in relation to Bhagavan. So the book is in relation to Bhagavan and the devotee is in relation to Bhagavan. They're both Bhagavata entities. And service, hearing, and other activities in relation to the devotee. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost prayeshu, just the stage. It'll eventually become more than almost, it'll become complete. But it's the stage, the nishtha stage. Almost completely destroyed. And loving service, so the cleansing is going on and something is being awakened. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead who is praised with transcendental songs is established. So the cleansing and the awakening. Devotional service has these two things always. Removal of unwanted and awakening of constitutional. Trying to remove the unwanted without awakening the constitutional, Shama eva hi kevalam, according to the Bhagavatam. Yes? Shama eva hi kevalam, waste of time. It's beneficial, but the purpose isn't being achieved, and so make it useful. Now, these next two slides are quick. Commentary by Vishwanath on text 18. He's indicating the aparads are weakened. As one progresses towards the nishtha stage, and weakening continues until complete at the bhava stage. So remember that the sadhana and the sadhya are the same, which is not true for gyan process or karma process or yoga process. We did that one. But this is unique. The bhakti process is unique. The practice and the goal are the same. Further on this same first verse, when one attains the nishtha stage, the mind can easily concentrate on the Lord. I think this should be 1 to 19. No, 18, it's 18, that's right. Okay. Now, here we go. Here's Bhakti Sandarbha making reference to these same verses. Bhakti Sandarbha, focus. Bhakti Sandarbha is Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha, speaking about or writing about Bhakti Sandarbha. And he makes reference to the same verse, where he writes on the topic of steadiness, that's our topic for this class, even though impurities are not completely destroyed, that is, nashta prayeshu, bhakti can be performed steadily. In the process of gyan, steady performance requires complete destruction of impurities. This shows the unimpeded nature of bhakti. So there's glories of the bhakti process. One is the means and the end are the same, and the other is it stands on its own. It takes you to the end. Unimpeded nature of bhakti. Ahoitukiya pratiyata. Earlier verse of Canto 1, Chapter 2. Bhakti, in the form of meditation upon the Supreme, becomes constant or naishthiki by service unto the devotees or unto the Bhagavatam, or both. Jiva Goswami's comment on this verse. And he continues, 19. Can you chant it together, please? Tadara justamo bhava Kamalobha dayaschaye Cheta etair anavidham Dittam sattva prasidati. As soon as the nishtha stage, that's irrevocable loving service, is established in the heart, what's next? The effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, stittam sattve, and he becomes completely happy, prasidati. It's sequence, chronological or sequential. Commentary by Vishwanath. In this verse, the Sanskrit word cha conveys the lingering presence of passion and ignorance in the heart of the devotee. But in the same verse, the expression cheta etair anavidham, or that the mind is unaffected by these, establishes that these material modes are not obstacles on the path of devotion, but reside in the heart in a neutral state until the devotee on the platform of nishtha attains bhava. There, it's technology. This is intelligence. The very refined intelligence. I was thinking to share this. I heard this directly from Jamuna. The comment is Prabhupada's refined taste, but refined taste about anything and everything. And one of the things she found out, she didn't ask Prabhupada, but she found out what's a very high quality, there's varieties of rice, and a very high quality rice. So she went to great labor and found the very finest, very thin kind of rice, and she made some rice and offered it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada took one grain, she told me this, took one grain, took it on the tip of his tongue, tasted the grain, and he told her what kind of rice it was. I can't do that. Similarly, all these details and refinements, and we don't have the refinement of intelligence, of discerning capacity to tell this from that from the other thing. And it's okay. Keep practicing. And if you don't know all these things, it's okay. Keep practicing. Don't feel, oh gosh, too many things. That was a comment from a few devotees earlier. It's okay. I mean, by refinement, then you can start to discern this type of rice from that type of rice. Or this type of style of kirtan from that style of kirtan. For many of us, we don't know one thing from another thing. But those that are really, really, really absorbed in kirtan, they know. And they hear a style, and immediately they know what style that is. But, most of us don't have that refinement. It's okay. Enjoy the kirtan. But connoisseurs, they have this discerning faculty. It's called intelligence, to discern this from that. So that's what that's what Vishwanath is doing here. I'll give another example. I did it already. I'll give it again. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is spending all this, taking the 9 stages of bhakti and defining them and refining them and so forth, has written, we mentioned this, a commentary on the pastime of Narada Muni, describing to Vyasadeva in a previous day of Brahma, how he was an obscure nobody and achieved perfection in one lifetime. Vishwanath, identifies there's 14 stages, not just 9. Remember that? And then he mentions it earlier, and then going back, he details it in narrating the commentary of Canto 1, Chapter 5. Narada telling Vyas how he became Narada. With 14, and identifying, in this verse there's these 3, and the next verse there's those 2, and it adds up to 14. No, it's just a refinement. It's his power of intellect to discern differences between this and that and the next thing. We may not have that power. It's okay. You don't have to memorize these lists and get dizzy trying to keep track of all these little anarthas. Whew. But the discernment becomes possible as we become refined, as bhakti becomes elevated, and the intelligence that Supersoul gives may tell this from that. That's what intelligence does. It discerns this from that. There may be some similarities, but there's some differences, and I'm saying this in part so you can feel a little more relaxed about, oh gosh, how do I keep going in this bhakti process? It's too complicated. Don't worry about it. Just look off to Vishwanath. There's a person that knows. Here's another little example. It has become a popular thing for devotees, not all devotees, but it's a growing thing to buy a Tesla. And when I'm riding in the Tesla, and the person that knows how to operate the Tesla, they touch that screen and all kinds of things happen, and it's like, what the heck is going on? No thank you. It's too complicated. I was learning to drive a car when I was 16. I didn't have to learn all that stuff. But, now people like it. Some people like it. And they buy a Tesla for different reasons. And you got to learn all that stuff just to turn the thing on. You get the idea. The discerning capacity that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is displaying, if you don't have it, it's okay. I said that 50 times. It's okay. But then there's details. Okay. Now here's our nice chart again. Let's look at the nice chart. There's Bhajana Kriya, there's an Arjuna Vritti. Way up there is Nishtha. And we just did those 5 items, starting with Laya and ending Rasasvada. And then there's Nishtha. There's another list. Gosh, another list. Phew. But it's just indicating where we are. So we're on the topic of Nishtha. 2 types of steadiness. You want to guess what those 2 types are? There's the spontaneous type. Steadiness achieved by bhakti itself. Sakshad bhakti. Vartani. Sakshad bhakti. Vartani. Steadiness in bhakti itself. Stated differently, this first fixed faith directly nourishes spontaneous bhakti. There's another type that's not as spontaneous. Some say, he's a liberal commentator, some say something else. Steadiness is attained in progression, namely body, mind, body, words, and mind. Mind is most difficult between body and words to get steadiness. Steadying your mind is not so easy. Others say it differs from one person to another person, so it's not sequential. That's a detail. Now, what's this other type? That's one type. So what the first type? Sakshat Bhakti Vartani. Steadiness in bhakti itself. There's another type of steadiness. What's that other? It's got a nice name. Tad Anukula Vastu Vartani. Too many Sanskrit words. Anukula. Anukul Pratikul. You know those two terms? Accepting things favorable. Anukul Yasha Sankalpa, Pratikul Yasha Varjanam. This young boy. Do you know those two terms? Accepting things favorable, rejecting things unfavorable. You familiar? So one is accepting things favorable, Anukul Yasha Sankalpa, Pratikul Yasha Varjanam. Accepting, rejecting. So Anukul, Tad Anukul, Vastu Vartani, or giving respect to others. These are characteristics of goodness, or things that are favorable, that help one attain steadiness in Sakshat Bhakti. Assimilate it, because we're going to touch on this, a couple different ways before we leave this topic. So let's take a look at this list. Giving respect to others. Amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Amanina. Or in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text number 8 through 12. Amanitvam badambitvam. Amanitvam. The quality of offering respect to others without expectation of respect in return. Correct? Same, in grammar, the construction of the word is a little different, but the root is the same. Giving respect to others, that's good. And it's a fault to not, right? Forgiveness, humility. There it is, amanitvam, or dainya. They're different terms meaning mercy, kripa, friendliness, kshama, etc. So one may become very devoted and steady in these activities, and it helps one attain steadiness in bhakti. That's the second type. Get ready for a kind of a curveball. We got two types, and then there's the second type of nishtha fosters complementary qualities. In this way, steadiness is achieved. So it's not a backdoor, it's just approaching steadiness through these characteristics. So they're both two types of steadiness. That is to say, somebody, sakshad bhakti, they focus on not the qualities and characteristics that they carry and exhibit and so forth. They're focused on the bhakti activities, hearing and chanting activities. And, they may, like we were discussing, they may not be so refined. And then a new person comes in, they expect to refined people, and they find somebody that's not so refined. And they're like, what? You people are supposed to be refined. It happens. The goal is nishtha, and the goal of nishtha is ruchi and asakti. And so you may have these two different types. So he explains it. When nishtha is achieved by sakshat bhakti, one may be arrogant. Have you ever met an arrogant Vaishnav? I have. Really? But they're steady, and they're steadily arrogant. Or otherwise contaminated by residual effects of the lower modes, even while being fixed and steady in bhakti itself. We want the first type or the second type? We want, we'll get there. The second type, tad anukula vastu Vishayani, refers to qualities favorable to bhakti, such as not desiring respect. This is another version of the same thing. Respectfulness, friendliness, mercifulness, forgiveness, gratefulness, patience, and so on. The first two qualities, what's the first two? Not desiring respect and offering respect to others. It increases humility in the devotee. Thus nourishes his devotion, because humility is necessary to have bhakti. I would say it conversely. Without humility, you can't have bhakti. If you're proud, you can't have bhakti. It's blocked bhakti. Then the next, being merciful and friendly to all living beings makes bhakti steady. That's the next two. Steadiness. It is nothing but deception to ask forgiveness from the Lord when one cannot forgive others. Ooh, powerful statement. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first? Being ready to offer forgiveness or asking the Lord for forgiveness? You get the idea. No, it's refinement, and sometimes we're not so refined, or peaceful people we know, people close to us, in our family, in our community, in our little bhakti vriksha group, and our little circles of sangha. You find some of this stuff. Then in this list of these favorable for bhakti qualities, there's gratitude. This is nice. Kritagyata is especially favorable to bhakti, gratitude. Thanksgiving. Bhakti Devi does not appear in the heart of an ungrateful person's. Even the Lord is full of the quality of gratefulness. He gives his own self to his devotee who offers water and tulsi to him. He even blessed the wicked witch Putana by giving her a position similar to mother, merely for imitating the behavior of an affectionate mother. Deception. I want to kill you. The greatness of a Mahat is that he has the quality of gratefulness. Maybe some of you received Mahatma Prabhu's description of what happened after his whatever it was, heart surgery. And it's like his voice is really weak, his body is really weak, and he's just sharing his experience, and the gratefulness, because there was a point where Anyway, he couldn't this and he couldn't that, and so that he can do this or that. If anyone can do this or that, be grateful. You take it for granted. Without the detail, you can ask somebody who will receive those, and it's just great. And gratitude is, it's fundamental for bhakti. It's the whole Thanksgiving message. You can say, thank you, but more than thank you is the feeling of gratitude, because where there's a feeling of gratitude, then there's a behavior and speech that follows the gratitude. What's inside comes out. Bhakti requires some sense of gratitude, and then it grows. If bhakti grows, or as it grows, bhakti grows. An insignificant person is ungrateful, showing his pettiness. The more elevated one is, the more the heart is full of gratefulness. Bhakti Devi does not establish her seat in the heart of a narrow-minded and ungrateful person. Akrita gya. Or put it in the phrase that I like and use all the time, gratitude is a seat of love. Now, love means on the spiritual plane, but even the material gratitude is on the material plane, but the seat of love is gratitude. So back to this Bhakti, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. These favorable to bhakti attributes are sometimes found in self-controlled devotees who are still in the phase of nishtata bhakti. In contrast, sometimes even if steadiness in the execution of sakshat bhakti is there, if the devotee is very arrogant, these additional favorable to bhakti attributes will not be found in him. Therefore, it is not a fact that all auspicious qualities have arisen in all persons who develop nishtha. Clear? Let's go back to this verse we've heard several times, and you've heard it probably hundreds of times. Sarvaya ganas tatra samasute sura. All the good qualities of the suras, the demigods, become manifest in the body of a devotee. But that's when nishtha is reached, and it's gradual, and it may not be, even sakshat bhakti may be there, but all those qualities may not be there. Whew. What to do? Become a nice devotee. When all these attributes do arise, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana, there is nishtha in bhakti. And when these attributes do not appear, it means the absence of nishtha. The complete picture of nishtha. And then he concludes, only one who is wise and experienced can recognize the difference between these two types of steadiness. Now, I had this discussion in the Central New Jersey Temple in relation to a japa retreat. It was an incidental discussion. It had to do with, I just share, because we're almost done for this session. In Buddhism, there's two things that are done to become free from suffering. So first of all, speaking in a general way, there's brands of Buddhism, but in a general way, the root cause of suffering is desire. The root cause of, if you're Buddhist, Root cause of suffering is desire. To become free from suffering, become free from desire. And to become free from desire, two things. One, frame your life in the quality of goodness, starting with nonviolence, compassion, truthfulness, cleanliness, etc., etc. Live your life in that context, as far as possible. And then inside that frame of your life, practice mindfulness. Be in the moment. Don't be in the future, don't be in the past, be in the moment, mindfulness, be in the moment. And when you get really good at being in the moment, the goal is to go beyond the moment. So what's beyond the moment? Nirvana. What's nirvana? Enlightenment. What's there? Nothing. Or nothingness. Void. Nirvana, translated, cessation of material existence. And when you cease material existence, but you don't have a sense of who you really are, then there's nothingness. Voidism. Now we also accept mindfulness and cultivation of good qualities, living a life in goodness, don't we? I mean, at least the four regular principles, but also, like we were discussing yesterday, developing refined qualities so we don't bump into people and step on their toes and insult them, and unintentionally even, but hurt people, and they start having quarrels amongst Bhakti Vriksha group members, or this Bhakti Vriksha group versus that Bhakti Vriksha group, or this community group, or that, and stuff. We don't want to do that. We don't want to quibble over the temporary. So we cultivate goodness. At least that's the favorable option. So we're not Buddhists, but there's some elements within Buddhism that we share. And mindfulness, one mantra at a time. Yeah. Try it. And that's practice of good sadhana. So we incorporate some of the same things, but the part that's missing in Buddhism is, who are we? And who is the Supreme? The Atma and Paramatma are missing completely. It doesn't say that there isn't, but it doesn't say that there is. So back to this last sentence on the board here. Only one who is wise and experienced can recognize the difference between steadiness that has come from bhakti itself and merely apparent steadiness manifest in the mode of goodness characteristics. So this is like a third item. Mode of goodness has some good characteristics, but it's insubstantial. Moving on. We're almost ready to end. Aren't you happy? There's the chart again. Look at that. And now it's giving us a peek at what's after nishtha. That's ruchi. So on the left and the right, there's sakshat, nishtha, sakshat bhakti, and then that which is favorable to bhakti. In this stage, two kinds of nishtha. There's a transition to go from nishtha to ruchi. Let's hear about that. This is nice. It's one of my favorite. Just as a piece of paper will not burn immediately by intensifying the sun's rays on it through a magnifying glass, but only when it is steadily focused for some time. Similarly, devotion will only alight in our heart if we stay focused on the object of our devotion steadily for some time. So this is moving, transitioning from steadiness to ruchi. Therefore, to get taste and devotion, we must remain attentive and fixed. What is the practice to do that? 4 things. Concentration without interruption over a prolonged period of time and in the right mood. In other words, same as this Patanjali, same as what Rupa Goswami is teaching, same as what we've been hearing. Nishtha, fixed and attentive, naturally leads to taste, if done properly, and stay with it. There's those Patanjali principles, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Okay, because I'm going quickly because we saw that so many times. Here's Jaiva Dharma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is addressing 11th Canto, Chapter 14. Again, this is Uddhava Gita section. To whatever extent the mind is purified by hearing and reciting the narrations of my virtuous acts, Krishna to Uddhava, to that same extent, that's the mind, regains its ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form, just as the eyes can detect minute objects when treated with therapeutic ointment. You have cataracts, and there's a way you can help remove by instruments and by medical treatment. So the message to go from nishtha to ruchi has everything to do with the intensity of absorption in the activities. And eventually, there's a goal. That's, you capture the mind. And it takes a lot of practice and practice and practice. Here's a Chanakya Pandit saying that I like. It's essentially the same idea. From his Niti Shastra. And the translation, there's the reference above. There are many ways of binding by which one can be dominated and controlled in this world. You're binding the mind. But the bond of love and affection is the strongest. Bhakti is the best way to control the mind. For example, take the case of the humble bee. Bees aren't necessarily humble. Which, although expert at piercing hardened wood, becomes caught in the embrace of its beloved lotus flower as the petals close at dusk. It's poetic, but his point is, Chanakya Pandit's point is, to bind the mind with love. You try to do it mechanically and it's not the same. It's not as effective. Very, very arduous. But through bhakti, it may be arduous, but there's a potency in bhakti that's just not there in other practices. Here's a nice image of a bee buzzing around a lotus flower. And because bees like flowers, and they're really like lotuses because the pollen makes really nice lotus honey. So they zoom around. If you've seen ponds where there's lotuses, there's lots of bees commonly. And by nature's arrangement, lotuses during the night, you're processing, during the night, lotuses close. When the sun comes in the morning, lotus is open. And at the end of the day, the full midday, fully blossoming lotus. And at night, slowly the lotus closes. And sometimes the bees get caught inside the petals of the lotus. Their stinger, or whatever it is, they can penetrate hard wood. They're happy being inside the lotus, at least for one night. Being in the embrace of their beloved lotus. That's Chanakya Pandit's example. So, bound by love, bhakti is a way of controlling the mind by love. That's a better way of binding than mechanical or discipline or da-da-da-da-da-da. And there's so many examples of very accomplished yogis, just Vishwamitra Muni and Menaka, just hearing the tinkling of her ankle bells. He lost it. Profound humility follows this attainment, considering oneself unworthy of achieving unalloyed bhakti. So if you start to feel humble, that's good. If you start to get depressed by feeling humble, that's not good. That's not what humility is. There's no low self-esteem or negative emotions. It's humble. Profound humility is a characteristic of higher stages of bhakti. And I'm going to end with this. This is, hopefully, the sound works. This is Prabhupada in a meditative mood. And has taught us that when we're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, my dear Radha, my dear Krishna, please engage me in your service. So here's Prabhupada on the Vyasasana speaking about making offerings to Krishna in the mood where you're insignificant and what you have to offer is insignificant, but you're in that profound mood of humility, wanting Krishna to accept anyways. And he loses it. He can't speak anymore. I hope it works. The sound way down. And there must be a way to do it, but the only way I know is this way. Watch the magic this scene is going to show.
Jimam bhaktya prajaj. The real thing is bhakti. What you got?
All right. There we go. Thank you, computer.
Jimam bhaktya prajaj. The real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna.
What?
What? It's coming from there.
Jimam bhaktya prajaj. The real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got, what is your value? And what is the value of your things? There is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten fallen. But I have brought this thing for you. Please sit. This will be accepted. Don't be puffed up. Always be careful. But dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you.
Profound humility accompanies elevated stages of bhakti. No, it's not so many times that Prabhupada did like this. We're going to touch on some examples where Prabhupada did like this. He just completely lost it. External. Here's Rupa Goswami on Nishtha from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Without attaining Nishtha, one cannot pass through the stages of Ruchi and Asakti to Bhava. In Bhava, the knot of timeless ignorance, avidya, the root cause of material existence, is destroyed. However, the stage of Nishtha by itself does not fully destroy ignorance. And in another place, a little bit later, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Narada to Vyas. Narada attained Ruchi by Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. The word, it's in this verse, Manohara, his mind's attraction to the sadhu's katha, means causing the appearance of Ruchi. It's a detail, but it's this Narada's description to Vyasa of his stages, even as a little boy hearing the words of the sages, he was experiencing the appearance of Ruchi just from hearing them, and they were very elevated. So here's the chart again. You've seen this chart several times. Just take a look at the chart. In the stage of prema, well, let's go back to where we are, nishtha. The material aspect of false ego, slight, but not prominent. And the appearance of the spiritual aspect of the sense of self is detectable in many places. And meditation, trace of other objects remains. So the idea is gradually to come to the stage of bhava is where the material aspect is an empty shadow, seeing the Lord is part of one's meditation, and the spiritual aspect is all pervasive. And then we want to keep going and get to the prema stage. Last, how to determine if someone, you or someone else, is on the platform of nishtha. See whether they're consistently intense in their endeavor to hear and chant, or if they're slack or intermittent. If they're steady day after day and intense in their effort to be attentive in chanting, hearing, and other forms of devotion, then anartha-nivritti will progress quickly, and offense-less chanting will be quickly approached. Such sadhakas are approaching the stage of nishtha, so intensity. And this is our last slide. Chapter summary. This is Vishwanath's summary from this chapter. Laxity or intensity of effort, as well as the difficulty or ease in hearing and chanting, followed by other devotional service, are the criterion for entering into, as well as evaluating, steadiness in bhakti. Okay. 9 o'clock. I didn't do so well. But you did very well. I just did too much talking. It's time for breakfast, isn't it? So that's chapter 4. And I think we should end because breakfast, and then after breakfast comes the next thing, and then the next thing. So if you have questions, take a few moments, write them down. We'll hopefully have a shorter class after breakfast, and we can take questions, Krishna permitting. Srila Prabhupada ki, or Premanandi.